When did you start into the war then?
Right after Pearl Harbor. I signed, Grandpa, you don't know, you never knew him.
No.
He was in World War I in the Navy Air Force. And he kept trying to get me in there. And he talked to all of, in his travels, he'd run into different Navy captains and things, and he'd talk to them about me. And so he finally got me an appointment to go down and take a physical exam for the Naval Air Force in St. Louis.
Yeah.
I went down there, took that exam, and they said, no, you got an overbite and you're too short.
Yeah.
You're 2 inches too short and you got an overbite. That's too thick, 2 disqualifications, we can't take you. So then I came back and I went up to Great Lakes and took a physical for becoming an officer and finishing the college. If I'd have finished my 4 years of college, I could have got a degree, or I mean a commission out of that, and gone to a 30-day wonder school.
Yeah.
And they turned me down exactly the same thing. Same thing. And that was the day after Christmas. And I drove up to Chicago and stayed with a fraternity brother up there on Christmas Eve. No, Christmas Day. The day after Christmas, I went to the Great Lakes and took the physical. And they turned me down. I drove back home. Went over, didn't tell the parents or anything. I just went over to the post office and talked to the guy that was signing up the enlisted men. And I said,
yeah.
He says, I don't know whether they'll take you or not. He says, you're all right in the height range for an enlisted person. You're not short for an enlisted person. So he says, you only got 1 chalk against you, but I still don't know whether they'll take you.
Yeah.
So they finally sent me down to, sent a group of us down to St. Louis. And they took me, but they stamped on my physical, physically unqualified for aviation and submarine duty.
Oh, yeah.
And then they sent me to, well, they didn't send me right away. They were full up every place, so they said, well, you can go home. Or you can, whatever.
Yeah.
We'll call you, just leave us a place where you can call. Well, this was, I don't remember just where it was. Anyway, I hitchhiked out of St. Louis.
Yeah.
I got out, well, you don't know where any of those streets are, roads or anything.
Right.
But I was following Route 50 to go to Tiff City. And I had gotten out, I was on 66, and I got out beyond the river where it cut off on the south side of the Missouri River.
Yeah.
And went to Jeff City. And that was Route 50. And it was cold, and there was a bar up at the top of the hill, and they left me off at this junction, and I started walking back toward the bar because it was so cold. I had an overcoat and a suit, and I'd get on this bridge and I'd walk, and the car would be coming, and I'd go the other way. Back.
Oh, yeah.
Finally, a car came by, and he was just screaming. Slammed on his brakes, and I says, you following Route 50? And he says, yeah, I've been following Route 50 all day. Zoom. And I says, you just passed it. He says, oh, and there was a double highway coming into the Route 66.
Yeah.
Up the wrong side of the road. And then pretty soon he cut over to the other, and then it changed off to where it was 2 lanes.
Yeah.
And he was from one ditch to the other, up and over the hills. Back from one side to the other. The little ditches that ran the water down the side were just like that. But he did be in one, then he'd cross over the other one. just a flying. And he finally got to a gas station. He says, I got to stop off here. And he took the keys out of the car, went in and came back. He says, if you're still here, I'll carry on. I was still there. I was scared to death, but I dived back in again. And he took me out of Jeff City. He says, where you want off? I says, right here. He says, I'll take you where you're going. I said, well, just right here on the corner. Just let me off. He left me off, and I just said, just keep going. Well, he was way off. He should have been on 66 way back there.
Oh.
As I was talking to him, I found out what he was doing. And I'm sure that he stole the car in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
He was a parking lot attendant.
Oh.
I think he just found a car with the keys in it and decided he wanted to go to, he was headed for the first, what would you call a horse place where they had horseback riding and all that sort of stuff.
Like a horse racing place or something?
Well, I don't know. He was just looking for a place out west where he could...
A ranch or something?
Yeah, something. But anyway, I figured he was going the wrong way on 50. But by that time, I didn't tell him.
Yeah.
We were already way... By the time I found out what he was doing and what he'd been and everything, I thought, well, just get rid of him as soon as I can.
Yeah.
And so then I stayed overnight with Uncle Tom. You never knew him either. I don't think so.
I don't remember.
He's the one that bought the lot we got the house on now.
Okay.
Anyway, I stayed with him for overnight, and then I decided I'd go down and see Grandma down in Springfield. And I told him I'd hitchhike, and he says, no, there's no travel. He says, I'll pay your bus fare down to Springfield. Well, something happened to the bus that ran late to the next, coming from Jeff City down to 66. Why, the bus I was on was running late, so they just missed the bus going to Springfield by about 5 minutes.
Oh, no.
And so everybody was sitting there waiting, and I said, well, I still got my ticket for Springfield, but it was 2 hours or 3 hours waiting for the next bus. So I just got out and hitchhiked again, and I was down in Springfield pretty quick. So I stayed with the grandmother for one night, I think, maybe two. And then I thought, well, I'll go home for a while. I can't remember whether I called the Navy or not to see. But anyway, I hitchhiked back, and I went through the Navy as I went into Springfield, St. Louis. As I went back into St. Louis, I stopped at the Navy.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we got a shipment going out in the morning for Great Lakes. So you'll be on that. So that's what happened. I went to Great Lakes for 30 days. That's all.
Yeah.
And then down to Navy Pier for, must have been 7 months.
Okay,
6 months probably at Navy Pier.
What city was what was that in?
Chicago.
Okay.
And then they sent me down to Hollywood Gunnery School over here.